Hello and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Lance McCall, the Global Campaign Manager here at Ribbon Communications. And as you can see on the screen, I'm joined today by an expert panel of my colleagues from Ribbon and ECI. So maybe Greg, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to start us off.
Thanks, Lance. Yeah, hi, I'm Greg Zweig with Ribbon, and I look after our unified communications portfolio.
Hi, I'm David Stokes, and I look after our packet and optical transport portfolio.
All right, good day. I'm Elizabeth Page. Thank you for joining us, and I manage the national sales team focusing on the rural and regional parts of the U.S., about of Raleigh, North Carolina, and we'll make sure you get my contact information.
And good morning, I'm Jamie Gibson. I lead the sales engineering team for the U.S., and I'm based in Lucas, Texas.
And hello, I am Sam Lyle. I'm the Director of Business Development for Packet Optical for Ribbon, and I'm based in Dallas.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate that. Before we kick it off with Greg, I did want to point out the Ask a Question box. It's at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. If you happen to not see that, there should be a question mark. You can just click that question mark. The box will open up, and we'd love to hear from you today. We have all these experts standing by to answer your questions, so please take advantage of that. And we'll be back kind of towards the end to do a little bit of Q&A. So Greg, we'll toss it over to you.
Thanks, Lance. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending today. Why are we here? Well, I'm going to jump right in and talk about how this market is changing. There's basically a gold rush going on for broadband and telecom services. We're seeing a major change as a result of the FCC reverse auction for 6 million homes and businesses. We call it RDOF, the Rural Development Opportunity Fund. And in October of this year, they're going to open phase 1 bidding, which is for approximately $16 billion of the $20 billion in overall funding that's going on. And what's really interesting about this particular activity is that unlike some previous programs the FCC has announced, this one is very much focused on performance. So it's not just a low-cost bidder, but it's the bidder who delivers the highest quality bandwidth in these rural areas. There's about a 6-year time frame in which they expect build-out to happen, but importantly, there is definitely a requirement for the winners to move forward quickly because they have to have 40% of their build done by the end of month 36 in order to qualify. And what's also compelling about this opportunity is it's so broad-based. If you look at the map, you see there's really opportunities in almost every state in the country. If you quickly glance, what you can see is the darker states represent the largest number of possibilities. The lighter the color, the lower the possibilities. You might notice that New York, which might surprise some people, is listed as 0, as is Alaska. That's because the FCC has made a decision that those two states already have some statewide funding in place for broadband, so they didn't qualify for the RDOF program. But as you can see, all of the other states, there's a large number of states that have, I think there's more than 25 states, right, have more than 100K users. So there's a substantial opportunity almost no matter where your properties are. And Ribbon has the tools that you need as a utility to become a UTelco. We have packet and optical solutions. We have tools for broadband aggregation. In other words, how to bring that, how to deliver rural broadband and how to manage that in the core. We have the ability to deliver 4 and 5G backhaul, and we'll spend some time talking about that. We have a complete package for cloud communications, so you don't have to go out and develop and build your own telco environment in order to offer telco services to those 6 million homes. And of course, we layer on top of all of that analytics for security and tools to provide a secure experience for your customers. And so that's going to be a piece of the agenda that we deliver today. And before we talk about the agenda, Lance, I'm going to just ask you if you might launch our poll question to start with the audience.
No problem, Greg. So the poll question should be there up on your screen. Is your organization planning to participate in the RDOF funding? So there's your choices right there. And we'll just give it a couple seconds here. Greg, you can kind of see the information coming in there on the polls panel.
Got So I'm just going to wait a second or two. We're still collecting a few responses, so I see we only have about 25% of you who voted. So if you haven't voted, please hop on and give us your opinion. So while we're waiting for that, let me just talk for a second about the agenda, which is, so what we'll be doing is I'll be turning it over to David Stokes, who introduced himself a moment ago. He's going to talk a little bit about the business models and services you can deliver as a UTelco. He's also going to talk about the evolution to a UTelco from a data infrastructure perspective. Then he's going to pass it back over to me, and I'll talk a little bit about Ribbon's cloud communication service, Kandy, and how you can implement that on top of a Ribbon broadband network so that you have all the pieces you need in order to be a compelling offer in this new RDOF environment. And then I'll also spend a couple of minutes talking about our analytics program, a portfolio. Once we wrap those items up, we'll spend a few more minutes just talking about the overall market and situation. And then we'll wrap it up. So we're just going to wait one more second. We only have about 40% of you who voted, so I'll give it just another second or two before I bounce off the poll and on to the next slide. But it is interesting to see so far, looking quickly at the results, about half of you haven't decided yet. So that's interesting. Hopefully, as we go through this this presentation, you'll see some of the compelling reasons why going after that funding is a very compelling business proposition, both in terms of what we can offer and the various ways that you can deliver services, not just necessarily to the rural homes, but the backhaul and other pieces. All right, I think we've probably hit the max we're gonna get. So I think we'll turn it over to David and let him talk a little bit more about enabling broadband. And David, I'll be your Vanna White, so just let me know when you need me to turn the slides.
So thank you, Greg. And as you mentioned, I'm going to focus firstly on potential UCO business models and the benefits, and then how we at Ribbon can help with this evolution. So with no further ado, let's look to the next slide. So firstly, some trends in the industry and where we are in this space. Firstly, there is a definite digital divide between the urban and the rural areas, and this continues to increase, especially as we get an exponential traffic growth driving all sorts of applications, most of them video based. And I think we're all experiencing that right now over the last month or so with just how much capacity the network demands, and for those of us in rural areas, how much there's a problem with it, and why we need to address this digital divide. In addition, just around the horizon, we start to see 5G, and that requires a huge amount of connectivity and capacity, which isn't there at the moment. So that needs to be put in place, and there's a pending discussions around a 5G fund, and that may increase the need and ability to do backhaul for 5G. Within your businesses and industries, the IoT and the IT networks become increasingly complex with the need to support smart and the evolution to smart and DERs, and then even a bit further with remote charging of vehicles, etc. The whole of your industries is becoming far more complicated as well. And then, of course, over the top of that is security, and security some more, both in your industry and in all the services that are provided, that you might provide as retail business services. So a very dynamic environment, and I think we're right at the start of it, really good opportunities. So if we move to the next slide, why might you be really well placed to address this as a UTelco? Well, firstly, you're authorized to gain access to lay fibers across the network. You're used to doing this infrastructure type stuff. You know how to do it. So you've got great experience in this space. Secondly, you have the infrastructure and equipment, fibers, towers, switches, routers, transmission equipment to support your day-to-day utility operation. That can be leveraged really successfully in developing a telecoms business. And in addition, other than these small mom and pop telecoms firms, you already have established really good relationships and brand image both on a B2B and a B2C type arrangement. So you have the trust in the consumer and businesses. So really, you can really leverage off that brand image. And of course, you have the knowledge and the know-how on how to run a telecoms network, because you run it to make your IT and OT network work. It's about taking that to the next level. Of course, there are a few issues you've got to deal with. Regulation, how you become registered as a telecom service provider. Do you need to? What are the rules? What the financial incentives are. We've touched on RDOF already. We'll touch on it again a bit later. And indeed, what is the competitive landscape? Well, it's our belief that if you address, to start with at least, the rural market, there's not much competition. That's the problem why there is this digital divide in the first place. It's fruit ripe for picking. So we should be going for the competitive barriers to entry are quite low in terms of competition. It's about leveraging your technology in the most effective way. That makes everything sound rosy. However, the shift from utility to UTelco is not entirely smooth sailing. First of all, you need a different mindset in the way you run your business, moving from internal services to becoming a service provider, and strict performance requirements and higher viability, which are top on your list today, are no longer your most important concerns. In fact, lowering the cost per bit and maximizing revenues become the concerns. But there's still good stuff to be made. And as Greg suggests here, on the slide here, becoming a UTelco is all about monetizing your networks. And there's a different set of business models you can provide. I'm going to really confuse Greg here because this is an animated slide. He's doing quite well here, actually. So firstly, you've already got investment in your network. That's the stage 0 level. And that's a base level of investment in your infrastructure. You're not making any extra revenue over that. The first thing you can be is a facilities wholesaler. And in that model, you leverage your basic infrastructure, towers, buildings, fibers. And you use that to provide co-location services for CLECs, ISPs, etc. Basically, the services themselves are managed by the respective carriers. They're just leasing equipment in substations from you, or even in the dark fibers, as I said. The next step is to become a carrier of carriers. That means instead of leasing dark fibers, as utilities, you sell managed bandwidth to other telecoms operators. A good example is mobile operators who are willing to pay for effective backhaul infrastructure. When serving as a carrier of carriers, you own and operate the telecoms equipment and take full responsibility for the connectivity you provide, but not the services. The services are owned by the other carriers. You're just carrying their service on your network. I'll explain a bit later. This greatly increases the revenue potential of your network at some incremental cost and greater business complexity. Finally, you may consider a retail broadband business model. In this, you become a competitive telecom operator providing retail broadband. The network is extended to the end users by you. Since the fibers that utilize, since you're providing this end-to-end network, you'll actually have to provide the connectivity for that last mile. You don't normally have that connectivity in place, so you'll need to put some investment or some agreement with other operators to provide that last mile. So there's a lot more investment, a lot more complexity there, but your ability to track revenue really ramps up, and there's an opportunity to take funding and funding models. So RDOF is one that we mentioned. Also, the retail business model requires you as a UTelco to adjust your organizational structure. You need to create sales channels for promoting and selling the services, and customer care units for supporting these new customers. But as I said, greatly increased revenue and maybe access to the funding. So as you can see, as you move up this model and you monetize your network more and more, your return on investment increases massively. So moving that initial investment in the fiber infrastructure at stage 0 is quite high, and no incremental revenue, by adding a few network elements to that fiber, you greatly increase your revenue potential. However, the complexity increases, of course. So moving to the next slide. So what sort of services are you offering as each model, as I mentioned before? Facilities wholesaler, dark fiber, maybe co-location renting. In the next sections, I will actually focus on the carrier of carrier and the retail broadband services you can offer. And of course, once you've got that in place, you can start overlaying all the voice services that you need to make that RDOF funding work. And Greg will touch on that after my section. So moving to slide 12. When you modernize your comms network, you might find you have spare capacity on your optical transmission network. In the carrier-carrier model, the idea is that you use this spare capacity to offer backhaul capacity to the service providers. These might be service providers or MSOs who want to deploy residential broadband services but don't have the metro capacity to connect to their network call. In effect, your network provides a network extension that they require. In the case of business services, a similar model applies, but you can add extra value by adding some encryption to your transport for specified services. So you're providing backhaul and they're providing those services to a secure infrastructure like a bank or government. You can actually encrypt those services on a service-by-service basis as they enter your network. So you can actually add a little bit of value even in the carrier space. Or it might even be mobile operators where you're offering a mobile backhaul service as pure capacity type play, as you do with 4G today. And this is a really, really common model that the MNOs use across their networks. They don't like doing mobile backhaul. They view it as a bit of a tax. And of course, with all of these services, you can start to either transport the network, as I say, as at least a managed fiber, or with modern innovation, you can carry the capacity as what's called an alien wavelength. So they give you a wavelength, you put that as a wavelength over that central network. Or an even more recent innovation, you can allocate them optical spectrum on your network and give them a customer network management portal so they can actually manage that spectrum across your network. So really, really efficient ways for them to use your network the most effective way, and you charge them for that. And of course, if you're really successful, you can add extra capacity to your network. But you already have the sites and the locations in your substations, etc., which in the facilities model you're renting out. So you have those sites. It's more about putting more capacity in that network to grow as you become more and more successful. So that's the carrier cases. Now, more interesting is the retail side, and we'll start looking at the residential broadband type space. These services are more complicated and require extra investment, and of course with them, as I mentioned before, bring extra revenue and give you the opportunity to provide that access to funding. The access technology you use to provide the residential broadband may vary based on geography, vendor preference, and legacy infrastructure. And in some cases, you may even be forced to use fixed wireless access as an alternative to a fixed access connection. What is important is that you have a single, integrated, multi-service packet and optical transport infrastructure able to transport that broadband access technology and services and integrate them onto a single backhaul transport network all the way to the point of presence and the ISP connectivity at the edge. Allowing you to do that means you don't have to build a separate network for each type of access technology. You have one integrated network that makes that rollout of that residential broadband much, much more simple. And with that, you have the ability to start targeting that RDOF type funding. Then if we move to slide 14, another opportunity, once you've done the retail services, sorry, the broadband residential services, you can start offering some business type services, for example. The simplest of these being layer 1 business services based on an optical type network. With the layer 1 business services, you're actually providing the business services I mentioned before, but directly to the end user. You're responsible for them. So you've got to have the ability to support all the end customer business needs. This might be supporting low capacity legacy services like Sonnet, fiber channel and lower speed Ethernet connections, or newer high capacity video services. Again, you have the ability to enhance these still further with per service encryption and shared spectrum, as I mentioned before. To do this in the most effective way, we would suggest using the purpose-built OTN type cross-connect to give you full flexibility of access in the access network, and an OTN in the metro and core giving you the ability to maximize the cost efficiency of that metro and core network. So an OTN type optical network allowing you to aggregate multiple services at the edge and then groom those most effectively in the middle with really, really cost efficient transport. Then if you move to slide 15. So after you've done the layer 1 services, you may want to consider doing layer 2 and layer 3 type services and using your packet network to do that. So, sorry. So using your packet network to provide the layer 2 and layer 3 type IP services. These might be MEF certified carrier Ethernet services, ELAN, E-Line, EVPLAN. The list is endless. If you know MEF, you know the services. If you don't, they're pretty standard. In addition, that packet layer is able to support MPLS-based layer 2 and layer 3 VPNs with all the security provided by MACsec and IPsec. The platform should also be able to provide support for legacy type services, Sonnet services, via circuit emulation, so you're mapping those legacy services onto the packet network. And the platform has to have the agility to evolve as you want to offer new services as they become available. A great example is that our platforms have an NFVI type capability on them. This allows you to support SD-WAN on a UPE hosted in that NFVI type network. So you're able to take the next generation services with SD-WAN, and with our SDN and NFV capabilities built in, you'll be able to support dynamic bandwidth allocation to support multi-access edge compute platforms, the MEC type capabilities as and when they become needed. Then if you move to the next slide, please, Greg. The final one I think is really worth thinking about, again, because I think the potential upside is huge, is this mobile backhaul for 5G. The MNOs really don't have enough connectivity or capacity to roll this out without going out to the market to get this transport for this connectivity to their base stations. It's a massive uplift on where they are today. I mean, backhaul requirements are going up by a factor of 10 to 100. Latency is dropping like a stone. You've got a factor of 10 lower in latency. You're putting edge compute across the network. They really, really need the ability, someone to help them provide the transport network to backhaul that network. And they have a model where they're used to paying for it. So I think this is one that's, if you go down the UTelco model, is one worth definitely looking at. Then, as Greg suggests, we move on to the next slide.
Well, I want to actually say, David, too, I think that for those who are watching, there's a, pay attention, the FCC is talking about having a second fund, so similar to this RDOF fund, but focused on 5G access in the rural environments. And so, you know, what's particularly nice about that fund relative to this conversation is if you are looking at expanding in a rural area for broadband, it stands to reason a lot of the same zip codes will be applicable to this 5G rural fund. So that could mean more towers getting built and bigger requirements for backhaul. So it seems like there's a potential kind of for a win-win in terms of this funding overlap.
I mean, absolutely. And with your networks, you have access to places where the MNOs don't really have access to, or even the TNOs don't currently have access to, for that transport infrastructure. You've already got infrastructure in place. It's a bit of a potentially could be a really, really easy win.
Yeah, it's a big part of a lot of our rural telcos business today. Many of them are substantial providers of rural backhaul. It's a very lucrative part of their business. But anyhow, I'll let you get back to your topic. Sorry.
No, it's a brilliant comment. So how can you evolve to become a UTelco? How have we helped utilities evolve? And I'm going to step through a pretty simplified model of what we've done in the past with other utilities, and some of the stuff that's in a little bit further out, but we're in the process of talking through and working through. So firstly, you've got today's IT and OT networks. You are either in the process of modernizing that or you have modernized it. Basically, you need to move from those legacy SONET and SCADA type transport networks to a packet-based transport network. And you're probably not going to get rid of the SONET and SCADA for any time soon, so you need to map the SONET and SCADA onto the packet type network. So if you want to map that effectively, that packet network needs to be deterministic, so you can actually map in a way that works for you. We do that, is what we do. Once you've got that at the packet layer, you can start looking at IT-OT convergence. The other thing, if you're going to go out there and touch the edges of your network, add security in at those points of access. And again, that's what we do. We'll talk to you a lot more about that if you want to contact us. We really have great expertise in doing that sort of thing. But focusing on today's story, we're talking about the UTelco evolution. If we move to slide 18. So the first thing you might want to do after doing that is you might want to evolve your underlying transport network to give it more capacity. This gives you this optical network gives you the opportunity to enter both the carrier of carrier and the retail markets. As we mentioned before, with this optical layer, you're able to address layer 1 carrier of carrier type services, that first slide I went through, plus you're able to do layer 1 business services, those optical business services in the retail area. Even at this layer 1 carrier of carrier, you can be the broadband extension for someone else's access network. So you're already able to go in and start offering retail broadband at this point. Moving to slide 19. The next step is you can focus on the packet layer. So you start to turn on some more of those capabilities that we have in our packet layer. Internally, this will allow you to converge your IT and OT networks in a more effective way. And you can start offering those revenue generating layer 2 and layer 3 services. Those business services I mentioned. You can also start thinking about adding those some advanced voice services that Greg will mention. And we've seen a number of people who we've got in this space we're talking to. If we move to slide 20. The next step is to turn on the really advanced packet features that are available in your network. These features are the features that we've put in place to enable 5G connectivity. But they're not limited to 5G. So we've taken our experience in being able to deliver deterministic packet and applied this into the next set of advanced packet features. We've also used a concept called a network slicing, where you can cut the network into slices. So one network you guarantee the performance of this slice, you guarantee the performance of another slice, and the two can't impact each other in any way. So that's the slicing technology in 5G. It's used for a services reason. But it's great for IT-OT because you can segregate your IT network from your OT network. It's also great for you if you want to offer 5G mobile backhaul, because you've got the capabilities already built into that packet layer, which, by the way, you deployed for your IT-OT network evolution right at the start. So by using those full capabilities, you now have the ability to offer the full set of carrier of carrier and retail broadband type services. And you have a platform that has the flexibility to allow you to move forward. So let's take you to the next slide. This is an overview of our platform that we have. We have a Neptune platform, which is for packet, and we have an Apollo platform, which is our optical transport platform. And we call both of them the Elastic Network. Our Elastic Network provides you with a combined platform to meet all of your needs. It has seamless integration between the optical and the packet layers and multi-layer optimization, making sure the right level of performance, resilience, etc. is applied between each of the layers. That means you can actually, once you've got your packet and optical layer in place, we make sure it's the most cost-efficient way of supporting the services you support. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have support across all of the various types of service you may ever envisage offering, ranging from all your legacy type services all the way through to 5G mobile and picking up the residential broadband and the business broadband services and the layer 1 services at the bottom. In addition, our Muse platform provides full SDN management and has an NFV portfolio to allow you to have the agility to evolve your network over time to offer the services that you need as they become available. So really quite a compelling platform that helps you move forwards with. If you move to the next slide, Greg. So on the next couple of slides, I've just picked 2 or 3 examples from our many of people we're working with at the moment, because I think they represent a good cross-section of what we're trying to do. So the first is Georgia Transmission. They initially went with a need to increase the capacity of their network, like many of you have, the need to increase the reliability of their network as well. For various reasons, they wanted that network, the communications network, to become more reliable. And they weren't sure, but they wanted something that allowed them to evolve over time. As you can see, we were extremely successful in delivering this. Our network is highly reliable in that they have deployed. In fact, an 8 times reduction in trouble tickets, which involved doing some fiber health management and many other things. The solution is compact and deployable as needed and scales as they wanted. And we could actually do, as I mentioned before, this per service encryption for their OT service, so they didn't have to encrypt everything. They were very pleased with that. And since then, they've evolved to become a regional backbone for 38 co-ops. And they use our optical backbone network to provide the residential broadband backhaul for these networks. So really started the journey with modernization and need to increase capacity, then moved on to providing residential broadband backhaul, as we explained before. Quite a sensible model to move forwards with. If we move to the next slide. So this is another one. This is a relatively recent win in North America. We're not at a point where we can share their name yet. They again wanted to deliver, this time they started out with a need to deliver high capacity residential broadband over quite an extensive geography, hundreds of kilometers. So they needed a low cost per bit kilometer type solution. They also didn't have a huge amount of fiber resources in their network. So they wanted a way of conserving the fiber resources. So we were able to give them wavelength multiplexing to achieve that. But they also wanted the ability to grow for future needs. So we put some what's called ROADM, remote optical add drop multiplex type solutions into their network to allow them to scale and flex their network as and when they added new capacity or new needs. Of course, the network had to be able to, and the equipment going into it had to be utility grade type equipment. So lots of people talk about carrier grade. Utility grade is a hell of a lot harder, and you have to design the equipment to make it work in the utility network. Our equipment did that as well. So we've sort of met their needs. I mean, our solution has the ROADMs, very small form factors where required. And then we're able to utilize our UTelco experience and the portfolio built for UTelco to actually meet their needs to have a UTelco level solution that can be deployed for residential broadband backhaul. So perfect solution for them to enter that market. And then the third example I want to show you is just to show our global pedigree. So I'll choose an example in Germany. And then if you didn't know, the German and their associated regions called DAC, they're rapidly evolving into UTelcos at the moment, looking to provide residential broadband delivery. For many of the reasons we've discussed, they start off by wanting to modernize, like this company did, wanted to modernize their existing OT communications. They needed to find a way to connect all their DERs into the network. Why did they select us? They really, because they're putting that OT network down, they really wanted something that had deterministic packet transport. So we're able to do that. Also, uniquely, when we talked to them, they wanted a solution where they could put their packet transport device into a DIN rail mountable type equipment. So basically the size of a pen. So this equipment is about, where's the camera? Is it about that tall and a few inches wide, and can plug into a DIN rail equipment and gives you 5 gigabits of MPLS capability backhauled across the network. Really powerful. They also wanted integration with, they'd already chosen their access provider for residential broadband. They wanted us to be able to integrate with those. And in fact, we integrated management of those SHDSL access connectivity into our management system. So to give them a very powerful end-to-end solution. And of course, yet again, they wanted someone with UTelco experience and a UTelco grade set of equipment. And we are able to offer them that. They're very happy. We've used them as a reference in other places in DAC. I think we're winning a couple of UTelco a couple of new UTelco wins every month or so at the moment. So a very successful evolution there. So just to recap the story, I know I've gone through it very quickly there on the packet and optical. It's all about monetizing that investment you've put in your fiber. That sunk cost is there, you've used it, you need it for your IT/OT network. But if you start moving through the different business models and becoming a service provider, you really can ramp that ROI up and really start to monetize your network. You might start at the most simple method where you're just renting out dark fiber or even just infrastructure. Easy money to make, very low complexity. But once you've started down that track, it's not difficult to really ramp up the revenue and become a full telco at that point. We can help you do this. We're a globally proven partner of many utilities who've gone down the UTelco model. We've been a trusted advisor, taking our knowledge we have involved in these guys and how they evolve for each step, meaning that the processes we have are completely field proven. They're not new processes that we're making up on the fly. They've been done, they've been tested, they work. And of course, that portfolio is UTelco grade. So with that, I'll hand over to how you extend, once you've got that packet optical network, how you'd extend that by adding on the voice services. So thank you, Greg.
Well, it helps to unmute myself, David. Thanks, David. All right. So as David said, we're going to talk a little bit more now about how to add or overlay communication services onto this tremendous network that David described. And so just as a little context, particularly for those of you who are looking at the RDOF funding, one of the interesting things about that, making a decision to go in that direction, is it does require telecom services, which has some significant benefits from the perspective of, obviously, and David, by the way, I think you're still unmuted. It adds ARPU to the average revenue per user to the residential offer. Obviously, if you go into these rural environments, I think one of the things you're going to find is that a lot of the small businesses are looking for a better broadband provider. I mean, they're typically, if they have any decent broadband, a lot of them are on some satellite or bizarre thing like that, but they may have a DSL, and chances are it's relatively slow, both upload and download. So we think there's a good opportunity to sell bundles, or kind of a dual play opportunity to these customers. And another little, from a legality perspective, if you're thinking about bidding RDOF, one thing to know is you don't necessarily have to be an eligible telecom carrier to bid. There are rules around that once you win the bid, but you don't necessarily have to have it on day one. But of course, getting into the telecom space is not for the faint of heart. Like anything else, it requires, David talked a little bit about the fact that you have to add sales and marketing. You certainly do. You have to understand how to support 911. There's rules around something called CALIA, or lawful intercept. That's, when the police want to listen in or do a phone call. All of us understand the challenges with robocalling. You need to have solutions to mitigate that. Obviously, you need billing solutions. It doesn't do much good to have an offer that you can't charge for. And you need the integration at the residence or business in terms of some sort of an optical termination unit, as well as a way to, you're, as I mentioned earlier, you have to bring your whole business team along. But relatively speaking, a Ribbon's goal is to make it easy to make this possible. So in other words, what we've done is we've delivered something we call Kandy, which is our cloud services for both residential and business users. And the whole idea here is that you don't have to become a telecom specialist in order to deliver telecom services. Basically, at the simplest layer, Kandy will basically plug into the optical and packet network that you build. Now, to be perfectly honest, you don't necessarily have to use Kandy with a Ribbon network solution, and vice versa. You could use a Ribbon network solution, not use Kandy. But at the end of the day, the value that we bring to this equation is the ability to service and support the whole thing. For someone like yourselves who's coming into this space, having a vendor that you can count on who can deliver the end-to-end offer offers a lot of peace of mind and value that transcends any of the technical solutions. But we do have a full set of services that we deliver from the Kandy Cloud. So we can deliver residential phone. We can deliver a full suite of unified communications for business. The PSTN services, for those of you who are not familiar with that, there's sort of a layer in the cloud which delivers sort of feature functionality. You need another layer for connectivity. That's how you get back and forth to the PSTN, or the public switch telephone network. We have a whole package of security and analytics, and we'll talk about that. And then we also have something called SIP trunking, where you basically, this is the IP connectivity into a customer's on-premises PBX. And that can include things like Microsoft Teams, which is a very hot solution these days. As a matter of fact, I'm sure with a given set of challenges, many of you learned a lot more about Microsoft Teams than you ever wanted to know about over the last few weeks. And of course, the interesting thing about our Kandy cloud solution, it's a very proven set of offers. We've had it in the marketplace for almost 6 years now. It's white label. What we mean by that is basically you won't see the Kandy brand anywhere. If you start Googling around, you'll only see it come up with the Ribbon brand. Kandy is a white labeled service. What that means is that our customers put their brand on top. So you don't go to market with our brand and promote us. You go to market with your own brand. And that means that we aren't competing with you, and you're not competing with other partners who have the Kandy brand, because you won't see it anywhere. It's designed to be quick. So a typical deployment of Kandy takes anywhere, from contract signing to getting to the point where you're in the market, anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And truthfully, a lot of that is the preparation side on your side, where you have to get your whole organization prepared for what it means to, like any other new service that you offer. And on top of the residential services, we have a very robust set of business services, and a lot of the little boxes that you see across this diagram. Things like call recording, a full unified communications suite, a full set of collaboration tools, contact center. So regardless of the type of customer you have, whether it's a small hardware store around the corner who needs, 3 phones and basic services, or you happen to have headquarters that's located in a rural area that might have 10 or 15 sites across the country, you can support any of those scenarios. And to kind of give you an idea of the scope of our solution, this just shows a map of where we currently have POPs for our solution, as you can see, worldwide. We also have dial tone access or PSTN services, telephone numbers, whatever you want to call them, across a big chunk of the world. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because we recognize that, look, when you start thinking about how do I pick a cloud provider, unlike our network assets where, you see a box, you physically can touch it and you bolt it into your network, providing cloud services is somewhat of a nebulous process. I mean, what do? You look and see whether the sales guy who shows up has nice slides and shiny shoes. It's hard to determine that. And I think if you're going into this RDOF space, there's a good likelihood that you'll get called on by a number of folks. And one of the questions you have to ask is, how many of these cloud providers really have the kind of infrastructure I need to deliver a 24/7 service? And one of the things that we want to get across to you, and some of you may not fully know the Ribbon brand, but we've been providing support to telecom providers for decades. We have, and we'll cover this in a minute, but we have over 1,000 telecom customers today. And this Kandy cloud is built with our infrastructure. It's designed to be, 5 nines reliable. And you can see the scope of what you're dealing with. We're not some Johnny come lately into this space who, put up a nice website and has a couple of good slides and says they're in the cloud business. And the other thing to keep in mind is the whole solution is consortium friendly. So I know that there's a number of folks looking at this RDOF environment, particularly, who are thinking about getting involved as part of a consortium. The Ribbon's Kandy Cloud service is perfect for that. As I mentioned, it's white label, meaning it's your brand, not ours, but it's also the portal functions that really run your interface into the system have multiple tiers. So literally, if one of the consortium members wants to become the prime for the telco services, others could actually act as resellers to the prime. Each reseller can have their own brand name associated with their own set of services. They can have their own catalogs with different pricing. You can have different feature sets. It's extremely customizable. It's been designed over the last half a dozen years to make it easy for us to have layers of authority and accountability and integration to security. So it doesn't matter if one of the consortium members serves as a prime and other smaller partners just want to sell off of their name. You can use your brand, you can use their brand, you could create a consortium brand that drives the whole scenario. But we deliver all these interfaces via the web. We also have a whole set of reporting tools, debug tools, all the things that come with a mature offer. And these are the kinds of things that really distinguish us from our competition, right? And one of the other things that distinguish us is the kind of references we have for this solution. Now, as I mentioned to you, we have lots of little hardware stores around the corner or the gas station down the street, plenty of small customers, but we also have big, serious major customers using our Kandy platform. So we have people like Hertz, who has over 1,000 locations across the globe. We have folks like the city of Los Angeles, right? Over 20,000 seats deployed today. Think about the sophistication of services from a business perspective that have to be available in order to support a major metropolitan area. And we also have one of the North America's largest auto parts chains. Now, that's not a public reference, so I can't give the brand, but they have over 5,000 stores. We've converted in the last year and a half, probably over 4,000 of those 5,000. We'll get there. This current health crisis has slowed us down a little in the last few months, but we typically turn between 100 and 200 stores a week of this chain. So that gives you an idea for the kind of sophistication that we have built into this. And this cloud is built, as I said, from the kind of tools that Ribbon has in the communications space. We support today, Elizabeth, who introduced herself earlier, leads our team here. We support over 500 regional and rural telecom providers. So we understand what it means. I regularly travel and meet folks all over the country. I'm based in Boston. I go up to the Telephone Association of New England. I go to the New York State Telephone Provider Association conferences. So, we understand what it means to try and do business in these regions. We know how business works. We understand the market. We have the tools to help you get in this environment. And of course, that's the cloud part of the equation, the communications environment. We also have a whole series of tools to help you, monetize and secure this environment. We call it our analytics platform. And basically, we give you a whole set of tools around being able to look down at your network, or maybe look up, however you want to define it, so that you can understand, right, not just what's happening from a reactive perspective, but from a proactive perspective. We can look at the network and understand, what's happening. Do we expect a service disruption? Do we see a security threat? Do we see a capacity issue? We can give you kind of a proactive view of your entire network before actually the problem shows up at your doorstep, right? And of course, that's particularly important from a security perspective, where oftentimes, attacks come in little bites, right? They'll try and touch a network in one spot or another and see if there's a place where there's a weakness, and they'll try and exploit that. What we can do with things like our analytics platforms is actually look for those kinds of signatures and begin to take proactive steps in the network to lock something down before it becomes an outright problem. And it's built on a whole platform, right? And I'm just going to build out the slide. So we can give you visibility into all the different points in your network, whether it's the internet, whether it's the voice network, whether it's the 5G network, or IoT devices. And then we have a set of analytics tools that basically crunch all that data and try and develop a set of patterns or trends that you see. And then most importantly, we give you a way to take action on those, because it's one thing to know there's a problem. It's another thing to be able to take action. And the whole idea behind our analytics platform is that we can not only automate the inquiries, but we can automate the actions as a result of what we see. So in other words, it's one thing to set up, and many of you probably see this in your existing platforms. It's nothing worse than getting 5,000 alarms, because how do you know which of the 5,000 are important enough to take action on? The idea behind our analytics platform is that we not only create the alarm, but we also decide which alarm is important and which one drives action. And so with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to David, and we're just going to talk for a minute or two about where Ribbon fits into the greater ecosystem that you're hopefully evolving to from a UTelco perspective.
Thank you, Greg. And firstly, I would say that as you can see from both sides of the infrastructure story, we were able to deliver a data infrastructure that allows you to have cloud services to the utility carriers, as well as all of the packet and optical business and residential services. The whole solutions are built and supported by Ribbon. We don't go and rebadge someone else's stuff. It's our stuff. We built it. We understand what it takes to be UTelco grade. And with that, both on the voice and on the analytics and on the packet optical side, we understand the importance of security in your networks and service provider networks and UTelco services. All of that is very key, and we've applied that across all of those logos and many more you will see on the right hand side of this page. And then if you move on to slide 40, Greg. We at Ribbon have that portfolio to meet all of your needs, no matter where you stop in that evolution process, to meet all of your needs. And we have the experience to take you and walk you through that journey to where you want to be, and help advise you onto where is the best step for you to stop or wait or move forwards. We can help you do that, and we're willing to talk to you if you want to talk to us about that, when you want to talk to us about that. So thank you very much for listening today. We are really excited about the proposition we have for you, and I hope you found it interesting yourselves. So I would say, just with that, as you wait for some questions, I'll do a quick advertisement. We've got an interactive webinar coming up It's going to be more laid back, less fast. You can learn a bit in a bit more of an interactive environment. Look out for the invite for that. It's called Communication Insights for Utilities and Energy Industries. It's coming up in about 5 or 6 weeks' time. We haven't finalised on the date as of yet. And if you want to look at any of other of our type webinars, we have a YouTube thing you can subscribe to. If you want to talk to, you'll get a set of the slides anyway, so you can take the link there. If there's anyone you want to talk to specifically about your needs or what you heard today, here's a list of contacts you can contact in the first instance. They may go forwards with you or they may reference you on to somebody else, but please feel free to talk to us. We're very excited about the potential that we have and the potential that you have to move forwards.
All right. Well, with that, maybe we can check in with Lance and see if we have a few questions that have come in.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks, David. We did have a couple questions come in, so we're kind of at the top of the hour, so maybe we just have time for 1 or 2 of them. But the first one that came in was, if I use your hosted UC solutions, do I need to have any infrastructure in my network to support voice?
Well, I'm happy to answer that. Or Jamie, do you want to chime in on this one?
Sure. I'm starting on my camera again. You know, you don't have to have any infrastructure in your network. We can provide all of that via our cloud platform, but we do have some service providers that have, you know, added session routers, security platforms like a session border controller, to where they can handle media and keep media local in their network. Certainly happy to help you with any of the specific requirements that you have.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie. Another question, do you have any marketing tools to help get us started?
We do, as a matter of fact. You know, and that's a great question because I really didn't touch on it too much in the session. But as I mentioned, we've been developing the Kandy Cloud now for almost half a dozen years. We have a large number of customers for that today, and as a result of that, we've spent a lot of time with them building a whole portfolio of tools. We have web pages that are all ready to go. We have brochures, we have videos, we have pretty much campaigns, so, you know, email marketing campaigns, so you can do reach out. And again, all designed to be white labeled in the sense that you don't need to use our brand. You can just put your brand on top, put your logo in, and put them to use.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Another one came through. What kind of tools do you have to manage the health of the fiber?
That's actually a really interesting question. We have an integrated blade that does OTDR across the network, and a tool called Lightpulse, which measures the performance of it takes that and measures the performance of that fiber. Really interested in the shared environment like carrier of carriers. We've had a number of examples where people have turned on that capability and found deficiencies in their existing fiber network without even knowing they had them. And some very, very happy customers to realize that we're able to locate within a few meters as to where the actual issues within the network are. So it's an incredible capability. Ask Elizabeth to get someone to show you a demo of it. It is an incredible tool.
Great. Sam, there was a question that came through, I think maybe that you might have already answered via chat. Maybe you could answer that one verbally as well.
Oh, Sam, no audio from you.
There you go. Sorry about that.
Much better.
And maybe, David, you can feel free to chime in on here as well. The question was talking about NERC SIP requirements for utilities that require, you know, OT traffic, operational traffic, from being separate from IT traffic. And then you sort of throw UTelco traffic on top of that whole mix. Kind of how do you manage that on a single infrastructure? And I guess I've seen multiple ways of doing that. We've got a lot of capabilities in our system and in our management system for keeping traffic separate, sort of both from a traffic performance point of view, so the critical OT SCADA traffic can be very deterministic. You know, but the internet access traffic for residential broadband, that can be a little bit more best effort. So we can do a lot of things like that. And I've seen different UTelcos implement different ways of skinning that cat. David, do you have does that sound right? Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, what I would add to that is we can follow whatever model that you need to follow. I know it sounds a bit of a cop-out, but with the same platform, I mean, the biggest separation you can do is air gap separation, different network element for each bit. Not the most efficient, but air gap is sometimes required by SIP for certain things. However, we can then integrate it all onto one platform if you want and use some brand new 5G type technology called network slicing to provide you complete segregation between the traffic on the same network equipment. So
yes, and maybe finally, we do have the ability to encrypt traffic at different layers and leave some traffic encrypted, some traffic unencrypted, so you can sort of segregate traffic that way as well. Good question.
I mean, it's one of those ones where we could do 2 hours on it. So in the session that's coming up, one of the themes is security. So look out for that, because you might get the answers there. Or again, talk to Elizabeth. We'd love to talk to you about this. It's one of our strengths.
All right, thanks, Sam. Thanks, David. Well, we are at the top of the hour. David alluded to it, but we will be sending out the slides later this afternoon, as well as a link to the replay. So if you missed anything, you can be sure to check for that email, click on that link, and watch the replay. Obviously, you can contact anybody you see on your screen right there. You have Elizabeth's information. She also put her phone number, I believe, in the chat, David's information, and Greg's. The new website's out there, the UTelco website. Click that and take a look at it when you get the time. But I'll just go ahead and leave it to everybody else here, Elizabeth or Greg or anybody else would like to say any last words before we sign off for the day.
Thank you for joining us, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.
Yes, there will be a brief survey, by the way, that'll pop up as soon as we end today. So thank you again for your time, and be on the lookout for that email later this afternoon. We look forward to talking to you again soon.